Hi, welcome to Stop Stigma, Start Healing, an Equitas Health podcast. In a world without stigma, we can ask for help, we can find comfort in community, we can heal together. Thanks for tuning in. Now here's Myles with today's episode.
Hello, my name is Myles, and I am your host of Stop Stigma, Start Healing, the raw and uncensored podcast where we talk openly and unapologetically about our lives as trans, lesbian, bi, gay, queer, and HIV positive humans. Our goal is to stop the stigma that prevents us from getting the healthcare we deserve. Each episode will feature real people in our community in conversation and storytelling. And here's my disclaimer. The experiences shared here are valuable and important. They are based on the lives of those in this space and some of you who are listening. Prepare to be educated, shocked, seen, triggered, and informed. No matter your response, keep the conversation going. Together we are stronger. Start healing. So welcome. Today's topic, and I didn't really have a great name for it. So if you've been listening to the podcast, a previous episode, we talked about the experiences of long-term survivors of HIV and AIDS. And I wanted to tell the next story, which are the experiences of those who have been diagnosed really since 2000, really since there have been effective medications and treatments available for people, because I think the experience is different. It's not less valuable. It just has been a different experience for us. And so, for lack of a better word, I'm calling us all the next generation. But the millennial generation, okay. I don't know.
I don't know if I look young enough to be that, but maybe we're going to play it today.
There we go. So we're naming it right now officially in the internet world. We are the next generation. So as we get started here, I'd first like to go around the room and have you introduce your name, let us know your pronouns, and tell us what you want the audience to know about you. And I'll just let you all start.
Well, I'm Michaela Denise. I use all pronouns, and I've been a performer locally, nationally, internationally for the past 15 years. Got my diagnosis back in 2006, and ever since then, been doing what I needed to do to survive and live. And that's kind of what I said once I got the information. And, been pumping and kicking and being a queen of all queens, the king of all kings. And, I do all everything. Local Sukihana, honey.
Work. So I'm Jason, and my pronouns are he, him, his. I was diagnosed in early 2002. So yeah, it's been 20 years this year. I know. I was like, he's calling it next generation. Ooh. Because yes, it's post 2000, but just barely. So I'll have thoughts that I'll want to talk about because I feel like I bridge a strange gap because I have a lot of close friends who I watched go through some significant struggle then as I then got diagnosed, and I had a lot of personal shame about that at the time. So we'll maybe talk about that a little bit.
But who else are you?
Oh, but who else am I? Oh gosh, I'm a lot of things. So I've also used actually drag to tell my story a little bit.
Awesome.
And I've been involved in the Columbus Gay Men's Chorus for now 22 years, and that played a significant role in probably helping me be here doing this podcast with you today. And then I sew things for people on the side. I create things. I'd like to call myself an artist, maybe, is how I define myself today.
I need new costumes.
Yeah, he does. He does sew things.
I do. Yes. So that's, a little bit about me.
Okay, thank you. And last but not least.
Yes, I'm Dion. My pronouns are he, him, his. So I was diagnosed back in 2013, so it's been a while. But, like Michaela's, I've been doing the things that I need to do to keep myself healthy, living a great life, feel great, feel wonderful. So I'm also a performer in the Columbus Gay Men's Chorus, and I've been with the chorus for about 4 years now. And, very heavily involved in the art scene as both a entertainer and also as a patron. So it's interesting, the people I've met and the experiences I've had with people similar to me in both facets of my life.
Great. So the first question I want to toss out is, and this is where you really tell us about your story, what you want to tell us about maybe when you were diagnosed, what led you to this point today. And there again, we don't have to keep going in the same circle. Just whoever wants to step in first can jump in.
Oh, I'm antsy, so I'm just going to go. And strangely enough, I think I have a little bit of anxiety just to keep it real about doing this podcast, even at 22 years out, because still sometimes I don't always feel super settled in my brain about my diagnosis.
And emotions are okay. And I think that's great for listeners to hear that although we're here speaking about this is still pretty emotionally charged stuff for us.
Sweet. So at the time that I got diagnosed, ironically, I was participating in a study at Ohio State, and I was at their clinical trials unit doing basically an interview type study where they just wanted to know what someone like me, a guy who was in his, at the time, late 20s and single and going out to nightclubs and hooking up with people. I was very sexually active at the time and not necessarily making the best choices for myself. And I was coming out of some other trauma. So I want to just put that out into the world, because one of the things that I can reconcile with today is that I was a victim of several different kinds of abuse. And so that came through my childhood sexually. And then I joined the military to try and make my life work, and then later got kicked out of the military for being gay. And so that all kind of transpired before any of this. And so I wasn't always making the safest choices for me, especially when it came to trusting people that I was being sexual with and not having conversations. And HIV and AIDS was clearly around. And so when it happened, a lot of people kind of were like, but you know better. So I got that a lot from peers around me at the time, but you know what to do. But yeah. So
what'd you expect?
Right.
Yeah.
So I didn't necessarily feel a lot of initially support. I felt very isolated, with the exception of some people in the chorus who I was close to and allowed me to at least talk about it. But it was, even with all of that stuff around me and the study and having a nurse that I could talk to about, I had access to really good stuff, but it was really just, I was struggling with a lot of mental health, I think, at the time, to be able to be receptive to it at that moment. So that was kind of the initial part. It got better, I promise.
I would say for myself, I came out in 2005, been gay since birth, knew that since birth, been every letter under the sun. So I can say I was born bi curious and played around and figured out. So I had lost my dad at 15 and a half. So I kind of say I was out there in a quest for love and the attention of male love, unconditional male love, because I had such a great relationship with my father, and it was just always just general unconditional love, no matter what I did, no matter what it was. And my mom always kind of made me go to my dad for a lot of stuff. So losing him and going through those things or whatever, I was just heartbroken from that age of 15 and all the way up. So about time 19 came, after I graduated high school at 17, I decided to come out. And so I was going out to the clubs and stuff, hanging out. And so by then, I had messed with 2 guys. And then who I contracted from was the 3rd guy, but my first boyfriend. So I know the night that it happened. I know what led up to it. So it wasn't, so me having that understanding, I guess I didn't go into a deep depression about it, because I knew and I know what happened. But what led up to trying to go get tested was I had wound up going to the hospital, and I thought it was because I was just eating Little Debbie's by the box load from smoking weed all the time and partying and hanging out. And so we go to the hospital, and he was they ran all the tests, and they was well, nothing is coming up. And then he was do you think you could have possibly contracted HIV? I'm well, hell, I don't know. I mean, my boyfriend right here. I mean, I'm not naive to the fact, but coming out in '05 during that time frame, we didn't really have a lot of POC representation or Black folks speaking on their experiences and stuff. So it was a lot of miseducation within the community. Even though you knew HIV was around, it was a lot of misunderstanding how things was. And all we knew in the Black community was Eazy-E died from HIV. Magic Johnson was alive, but nobody knew how and what, and still to this day, nobody really understands and knows how, even with his wife and children never contracting. So I got I went down, the guy I was with prior, he was with somebody that was positive, so I was like, can you take me where you go get tested at? And first test, first results, and like the lady, she was just shocked. She was like, are you okay? Are you fine? I'm like, yeah, like what do I gotta do to survive? She gave me my red photo of information, and that week I just did what I had to do, and I did a lot on my own. 6 years I didn't tell nobody in my family, nobody close to me, only the person who I contracted from, the person who took me to get tested, and I told one of my dearest best friends at the time. She was hurt because she felt like she pushed me into the guy when we were at the after hours. I'm like, it's not your fault. Like, young, I was in love, but also full of being around lust. I'm like, you smoke and drink and go to the club, twerk team and grinding, and went home and both had a fully versatile night. So I was like, I know it. I played a part. So I didn't like beat myself up about him per se, but I beat myself up because I was like, you should have used protection, you should have. But I was like, in that moment of lust, you're not thinking about that. In that moment of, oh, somebody's attracted to me, somebody wants to be with me. And it was a guy I had a big crush on. And I think he tried to tell me for so long, like, we want the same thing. No, you want me. We don't want the same thing. Like, but I think he was trying to tell me, but without disclosing and telling me, to try to push me away. But I was so persistent on, you the hottest man I see, and I want you, and you want me. And he like, no, you do want me. And so that's why it's like, I can't blame him fully because I have to take blame for myself. And so like, that's what I've always tried to explain to people. Like, you can be upset all you want, but you still got to figure out what happened and why you didn't play your part to do your protection needs also.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there.
I was going to say, I feel like I want to revisit a couple things too.
Yeah. So, but before we do that, we'll liven the mic over here for baby Dion.
Well, my story is not quite as interesting.
It is.
But so my journey began shortly after I became a single man. Like many single gay men, I just decided that I wanted to explore all of the options out there. And so I did. Had many fun nights with many different people. And met a guy. We started dating. And one day he decided, hey, let's just go get some blood work done. Just routine blood work, I'm like, I said, okay, why not? Like, I felt great. I said, I don't think anything's wrong. So we went and got regular blood work done. So me being the curious person I am, I kind of looked at the results and saw that my white blood cells were a little off from what they should be. And so that got me thinking, well, maybe something's wrong. Maybe my body's fighting off some sort of infection. Like, I don't know what's going on. Let me get tested for HIV. So he came over to my house one day, about a week later, and I drove out to get tested and, something that I would do pretty regularly anyway. So I went out and got tested, and the result came back positive, and I was dumbfounded. Like, I didn't think this could happen to me. I was young. I was invincible. I thought that, I could fight anything. Like, HIV's for other people, not for me. And so when the person told me this, I'm just sitting there in shock. And like literally, like my vision was blurry. Like, I couldn't hear what she was saying. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And she kept asking me, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm not, obviously. So we sat there for about 20 minutes and, she tried to talk to me and get me to talk back. And finally I did. And, she gave me paperwork and told me next steps. So that drive home was probably the longest drive home of my life. Just going through all these scenarios in my head and thinking that I'm going to die and just not knowing what's happening next. So I get back to my apartment and tell him, and he just reaches his arms out and gives me a big hug and tells me it's going to be okay. And in that moment, I just broke down. I cried for about 20 minutes, just not knowing that I had that support, but also, being scared to death, about what was going to happen next. So lucky for me, he was a healthcare professional. So he kind of got me hooked up with all kinds of services and people who were really receptive to our community, people within our community and our struggles. And so got the care I needed. After about a month or so, I kind of worked through in my head that, I want to live and I want to have a full and happy life, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to do that. And so I did, and I have been ever since.
Positive Sisterhood is a support group for Black and brown women living with HIV. Join us on the first and third Wednesday of each month from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Meetings are online and in person. Come as you are. You can learn more about Positive Sisterhood and all of our support groups and services at equitashealth.com/starthealing.
Yay!
Yes.
Yay! So I'm just going to pipe in and say that it's really cool to hear everybody share. I know that for me at the time, even though I had people around me, even to this day, when you vibe with people who are like have some commonality with you, no matter what we look like on the outside or like the feelings and the stuff going on inside is like, it's really similar. And I think because of how isolated I just mentally was about lots of things, this just played into a narrative about me. And the more I do things like what we're doing right now, it lifts me out of that space. So thank you. I'm glad I'm here. And, even though I got the news from like a safe source and like people could talk to me, I still, it just was strange. Like, cause some of the friends that wanted to help me at the time were HIV negative people. And then I gravitated towards other HIV positive people because I was like, where do I go? What do I do? OSU had some services that they directed me towards. One of the weird things I think that was going on medically at the time was there was a conversation around, do you start medication right away or you don't? And so my diagnosis happened in this window of time where there was a couple of different theories about hold off. And so I did the hold off method just so that it took me from the time of my diagnosis to when I started medication 8 years.
Yeah, I was 6.
My goodness.
8 years.
I was 6 years.
8 years. So, and part of that was because of the science they were talking about at the time, right? And obviously, just like all science, hopefully as time goes on, we learn more and get better advice.
Oh, yes.
And so that I took the advice of, we're going to test you every 3 months and follow those numbers. And then everything to me was like watching a stock market ticker from that point. I got super intellectual. I was like, show me these med charts. Show me what the classes of drugs are. I wanted to read everything about every bit of it. And so I was at least the kind of patient that wanted to be really dialed into what are these drugs. And I was very pill phobic. So I didn't want to take them. I was scared of the medicine. And when you think about some of the stuff going on in society now with, I don't want a vaccination and I don't want that. And I'm like, and sometimes I've even gone judgy on people like, why wouldn't you get it? Oh, but yeah, girl, you sat there for 8 years while this virus was running rampant inside your body doing who knows what. I mean, yeah. So it was a lot to think about. And yeah, so we were, as we all are, doing the best we can. Like it was kind of the route I took, and ultimately I found my way to the meds, but not after some significant. I got sick, so I had like pneumonia symptoms when I ended up in the hospital. I was seeing a doctor. I was in fact seeing a infectious disease specialist, like not just a regular practitioner, and of course he was very adamant that I start this medicine. And I was like, well, I want to wait a little bit longer. I want to read this other thing. And once I was in the hospital, they were like, you're taking it. You don't get to go home unless you're on this med. And so that I was at Riverside, and that was kind of how I started medicine and at the time I had leukoplakia in my mouth. I had pitted keratolysis on the bottoms of my feet. So there were these rampant fungal things happening on my body that my own defenses no longer could control. My CD4, my T cells were like around 70. Yeah. No, I was that sick. Yeah. And I had a really thin, cute figure at the time that my friend Mitch, who was on one of your other podcasts, I think, used to say to me, because he would look at me and he was like, that's not a diet plan. What you're doing is not a diet plan. It's called dying. Yeah. And so, So I was getting it from my people who loved and cared about me. But again, mental health. I want to really just stress how mental health and having a good mental state up in general is so important to just self-care.
On that topic, I'd be curious to hear about both of your experiences with starting treatment.
So for me, I just really had to get myself in a space where I accepted the fact that I was positive before I would even start taking meds. And that for me took about 4 weeks, honestly. And then my doctor said, you can take meds or not take meds. You can wait and see what happens, or you can get on meds now, whatever you want to do. And I'm like, I'm getting on meds. Because lucky for me, I caught it early. And I'm like, I don't want to do any more damage to my body. I want to knock this out, treat it, manage it, and be as healthy as I can possibly be. And when I got to that point, it was like, great. Like, this is my reality, but I can live with this. Like, it's 1 pill a day. It's not, it's not some crazy, regimen of stuff that I have to take. The medication that I'm taking is not like older medications that are extremely toxic to the body. I can take this for a long time. I can be healthy. I can live a long life. Like, why not?
For me, like I said, getting a diagnosis in 2006, I sat in that room, got my diagnosis from Tanya Motley, and she was just like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I just want to, figure out what I got to do to live. She gave me my big red folder of things that I needed and what I could use as resources. I started going to doctor's appointments, started going to therapy, started going to the dentist. Everybody in my family and friends was like, bitch, you stay at the doctor. What is going on? I'm like, I'm just trying to be healthy, like trying to live healthy, still not telling nobody what was going on. I was going to the OSU infectious clinic, getting care and stuff. And then they were trying to explain to me about medicine. But like I said, being a young black man, not seeing and hearing much about it, I'm like, y'all trying to kill me. I'm just going to ride the wave and figure out what my body do. And being somebody highly spiritual, I just kept praying about it, because at first I'm just like, I'm a church boy. Like, I don't even really have sex. Like, are you serious? Like, and a person being scared of death. I'm like, Lord, what are you doing? Like, I didn't know what to do, but I also knew when I came out the closet that I wanted to be a person that was doing the work. I told myself I want to be the Jesse Jackson and I wanted to be like Jesse Jackson and all of them in the gay community, be about the issues and stuff, but also wanting to be a part of the care of sexual prevention. And I used to tell myself, like, how you gonna do the work when you don't know the experience? Because sometimes, like I said, as a POC person going through care, mostly all my care providers was white, so trying to explain like my feelings and my vibes about things, you don't understand like kind of the resistance, because how black people have been science animals for the medical field. So I was just like, and so back in the days, a certain agency had 2 different names, and I was a part of them. And I was a part of their first client advisory board to approve a certain clinic downtown. And I was like, if I sat on the board, help make the decisions, why not see what the clinic is about? But it's Central High Street, the AIDS Resource Center. Who wants to be seen walking in the doors of the AIDS Resource Center? But the doctor at OSU, one time when I was in there, and I had took one of my friends with me to be the support system during my care, and they were like, you know what? And I was just talking about, I know the medicines cost a lot. I have no insurance. I don't have a job. I can't start something to try to save myself, and then I can't afford it. And he said, you'll never be financially stable. So in that moment, I was like, the medical field really don't give two fucks about me. And so I was like, I'm no longer going here for no care. So I was like, well, let me go jump rope and go see what this place is downtown. And so like the doctor, who's my favorite, just meeting them and starting care with them, they understood where I was coming from. And so it was still a little journey within that 6 years before I started medicine. But it got to the point that it was like, your numbers are getting low. You're borderline an AIDS patient. I said, oh no, bitch, we not having that. So what do I got to do? I only had took Claritin, so that was a small pill. And so we had to figure out what I was going to do to take these big horse pills. So I was just like, so the niceness and the sweetness, they was like, we're going to start with a vitamin. Put you on a vitamin for a month so you can figure out the practice of swallowing and being able to take care of. So we did that, and then I started my meds. When I started, like I'm on my third medicine from the start. But, 06, started 2012, 2013-ish, started medicine. But I'm like, the first meds that was active that really did something was 94. So I'm like, the fight is not that far back and the fight is not that long. But like I say, you don't hear about POC people and black folks who was talking and sharing publicly about anything. So I was just like still doing everything in private in the closet. But when I first started medicine was when I was like, I'm gonna need a bigger support system. I don't want just my one best friend being that person. And so I was like, I'm gonna have to disclose to my family. And that's what I did. I had a meeting and figure out or whatever. And they was like, well, yeah, start medicine. Like, da-da-da. Like, everybody was hurt and everything. But I'm like, it's my body. It's my life. I got to figure it out. Y'all don't have to deal with this. Like, my health is fine. But what I've always told everybody, your health, you can be 100% healthy being an HIV positive person, but it's the mental struggles, the mental battles, and it's the mental warfare. And so even still in 2022, I'm like, it's the mental. It's not the health part. It's the mental. So, like, I went through a lot of stuff with that. And then, doing everything on my own in private, not sharing with people. I didn't go to support groups or anything. So I didn't really talk about it with nobody in the community. I just did what I needed to do to be healthy for me. And like you said, study, learn. I still have every piece of paper and dialogue that I got since 2006. I still have my test result papers. Like, I still have every pill bottle too, because I had to use them in my discussions and my challenges with people when it came to COVID and vaccinations. I understand this medicine. I understand this science because they've been putting into this for like 35 plus years. So when you tell me that I need to focus on a booster or a vaccine, baby, my HIV is the #1 top care that I'm concerned about. I'm not about to play Russian roulette with the science world when y'all popping up and bringing up stuff, but y'all don't even know what it do. So, yeah, I'm kind of rebellious in some things, but I'm always active about making sure the importance. And I'm like, that's the one thing that's the most important to me, because that's the one, like, big diagnosis I have outside of, like, depression and anxiety and things like that. But I was like, knowing that I've become undetectable and been undetectable over 10 years, you're not about to fault nothing with my immunity system, and the fact that I've had to take these pills for so long. And baby, if you want a visual, I'll bring you the visual, because I have every pill bottle. Okay?
Wow.
So,
That's wild.
Oh, yes.
Go for it. I thought Dion was going to say, I don't want to jump on people. But, like, so the regimen thing, once I started that medicine, there was really, obviously, they wanted me to take a 1 pill a day thing, because they were like, you don't even want to take one. So we're going to make sure you go on the 1 pill.
And that's the 1 pill always.
And there was really only one drug at the time. Can we just talk about it? Or do I do? This isn't a paid advertisement.
It is not.
So,
but we probably all took it.
Yeah. So
right?
I was on a triplet first.
Oh yes, me too.
And so, and I started it in 2010. I went to undetectable within 3 months. Now, as ravaged as I was allowing myself to get, I then sat there and was like, what the hell? Why did I wait to go on this medicine? My life improved dramatically within a short period of time. So anybody listening to this podcast, if you're like debating whether or not the medicine will help you, it does. So, and even though later, I found out that there were side effects to that medicine. There certainly were. And I was scared then to switch off of it, even though people were like, this is like making your bones break down and fall apart and like your kidneys will fail. But like my numbers were always good. And so my fear was about things like drug resistance, and you talked about like older medicines. And so when I first got the diagnosis, I had friends who were taking the crap like Crixivan and like couldn't keep their dinner down like every day of their life. And so I was terrified of the drugs because of just facts. And so
the side effects can hurt more than the diagnosis.
Yes, than the diagnosis, for real. And of course, God love my nurse, Michael, at the time when I got the diagnosis, because I went straight to death. Like, you're going to die. And Michael was like, you're not going to. Yes, we all die. And so it's going to happen to all of us one day. Amen. So like, and so, but you know, it's like an automatic response when you hear something that is equated with death, like in our culture and society, right? And so, so the drugs to me were this bad thing. I went on that medicine, and then it was doing great. My life was stable. I was happy in a relationship with a partner, and you know, they knew I was on meds. My family still had no idea. I did not tell anyone in my family. Not even my sibling, who usually gets the first alert of anything that I don't want to tell my parents, right? And so it wasn't until later, and you said something, Michaela, about like, why are you going to all this? Why are you always at the doctor's office, right?
Because everybody was asking, like,
and people start to notice things. And the things that I fought with a lot were like with the pharmaceutical company and like mail order prescriptions. And I would struggle so much. And the fight would always be, well, they told me if I skip these drugs for any period of time, I'll become resistant and they won't work anymore and I'll run out of choices. And so to me, sometimes I would have these panic attacks with like the pharmacy. And like, so sometimes they were like, no, you need to fill it at CVS in person. And then no, because I switched around. I had private healthcare and I had insurance. But I also felt trapped. Like I could only work certain jobs or feel like I could do certain I felt limited at life because of the diagnosis. Just, I want to be fully transparent out about that, is that I somehow felt boxed in now because of this in my choices. Especially with work and healthcare in particular.
Well, you had to choose an employer that wouldn't discriminate, right?
Correct.
Right, and that's even part of it. But like, do they have insurance coverage that will cover this? And how do you talk to your HR reps about, hey, I have this diagnosis, I have this pre-existing condition that's really big.
Yeah. So that was part of my concern with telling anyone. Was, in fact, like having work know. While this is completely speculative, the year that I was diagnosed in 2002, I had a great job. My things were generally in my life pretty solid. And I disclosed this health diagnosis to my manager at work. And 6 months later, I didn't have that job anymore. Whether or not I can prove that legally at this point, it doesn't matter. Yeah. But I definitely felt like it was a contributing factor at the time.
The fear was still so high back then, like, because people still, all they knew was the 80s and early 80s and 90s, like the education factor. Even though there was work being done, it wasn't implemented in the communities and stuff. Because I was like, once I got into this work field, come to find out, they was doing prep studies back in 2006 and stuff or whatever. I was like, well, hell, I got diagnosed in 2008. But it was in white male communities that they were doing a test study. So I was like, there could have been a whole heaping of people who may have not been contracted, but you know how the medical field works and what they do. And like you were saying about the just the different medicines and things like that. Like, I was just like Slim Jim. I was like feeling like I was cute. I didn't want to be a twink, but I was like, I always had a little thickness, but I was like, ooh, I was nice. And so a lot of people couldn't tell because I was always active. Like, especially when I started doing drag, or even when I went to hair school, like, everybody's like, you still reaching dreams and accomplish stuff nobody would have never knew. And then even with the medicine, when I started, like, I had wind up being in a housing program and things like that, because they told me, they was like, well, what if you stand with somebody and you tell them and they put you out? Because at first I didn't want to do the housing program. I was like, girl, that's gonna link me, like. But then I had to think about the realities, like your health, and you go through something, you don't want to be stuck on the street. Then when you're talking about the medicine and stuff, I was like, oh, well, getting stuff sent to people, then they would know. So like it was good that I was like top flight security of having housing by 2007. And so like people still to this day, they was like, I would have never knew because bitch, you ain't seen nothing in your house. You ain't see no medicine. You ain't see no pamphlets. You ain't see no books. I'm like, I got everything, but baby, everything have its high in place. So like, you're not gonna see and you're not gonna know. Like,
the secret
but then like,
cabinet.
even with the medicines and stuff, it was like, you went still to this day, talk to your doctors to figure out what's best. Because there was a point where it's like, well, I want to gain weight. So they switched me to a medicine that was going to allow me to gain weight, but then it had different side effects. And I think that was the mental stuff that still kept kicking in about different things. And then it was like, well, I don't want to be gaining all that weight. So can we switch it? But it was like trying to figure out, because I was like, at first, like I was always 156, 160. But then like when I look at pictures of me now from back then, I was like, ooh, bitch, you did look sick. But nobody knew and nobody could tell. But I was like, I was just small frame. Now that I'm a little thicker, it's just like, ooh, now you getting too. Because it was like, I always said, I was like, Lord, I want to be like 200.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Like,
give me some of that.
Okay, we're going to have to figure out a balance now. Because I just want to be healthy, but no weight gain. And then like, it was always the stomach thing. Like that was an issue about the medicine. And still to this day, because I was like, I had a going to the same place, getting the continuous care for all the years that I've been in contract. One of the pharmacy folks that was like, your stomach is just like, it wasn't like that before. I was like, girl, shit, I know too. Like, can you tell me what's going on? They're like, what medicine you on? I was like, we done went through a few. I was like, girl, because I ain't had no midsection like this. Like, so yeah, like it's always like the education part, just staying educated. But yeah, like you said, even with jobs, like I feel like now, because I want to be more free in my storytelling or just sharing my diagnosis, because I was like, early on, I had people come and disclose to me without me even ever saying nothing. But I was like, I guess they felt a comfort or felt some type of like, you know something, or you, because you stay in the realm of doing community advocacy or doing stuff, being at these programs, being in these, like, you surrounded by this stuff. So I was like, you know, maybe I should say something and speak. But it was like the privacy of this is my story, this is my life. Like nobody has to deal with what I go through. But then also you go public, the judgment, the this, the that, like a bitch still single, even though I feel like what's the tea? But a lot of people say I'm just too secure. And I think because I have a saying and slogan that I live by, every negative can be turned into a positive and every positive can be turned into a greater positive. My positive diagnosis did not take me into a negative realm, but I reassured and found more positive things to do. And so like in everything that I do, it's just all surrounded by positivity. And people are like, you just so positive, you just so positive. Like, I am, but like I feel like I don't have to share it in that sense of disclosing, because it's like you just so everything you do, like, yeah, like everything is a positive feat for me, or everything should be turned around into something positive. Like, and I think it's just weird that like in the world, a positive is celebrated, but in health, positive means something negative. Even with other test results, if you get a positive, it's the end of the world for people. Even with a pregnancy test, you get a positive, it could be the end of the world, or it could be so.
Yeah.
Right.
So I feel like medical real, they need to find some realm to flip it to where it's like, because I was like, baby, negative should be like, because baby, it's some of the negative folks who are the most at risk, and those who don't want to get tested are really. So I'm like, the positive folks, you know, we surviving and living, trying to do what we got to do, and trying to share that with other people to make sure like you don't have to convert or you don't have to, but like I've always said it's everyone's personal choice and how they want to go about their personal health. Because being out there, being a tester, it was so hard trying to tell people, like, your personal health is the most important, especially if you're a serial tester and you keep coming back, like, and you can't put I in those type of situations. Like, baby, my first test was the test. I don't know what a negative test result is. I don't know what that feeling is. So it's just like to see you be able to come back in and get it and still be like, I don't want PrEP or I don't want condoms. Like, baby, if you would have told me back in 2008 that it was a pill out there called PrEP to keep you HIV negative, I've been popping it like Tic Tacs and bubblegum.
Yes,
like,
everyone get on it.
So,
like, this isn't a commercial, but do it.
I've heard all three of you talk about, there's the medical component to this, but there's also the mental health piece. And since we are here around stigma and starting to heal, what are your thoughts about what sort of mental health support you needed then that maybe didn't exist or you got and or what would even be helpful now, and maybe what those challenges or barriers have been for you.
I will say, based on something, Michaela, you were just saying about keeping some of it more to your own self, I think that early on for me, it was important for me to have other people who had the same diagnosis that I could talk to, who had firsthand experience to answer questions. It was important for me to talk to people that shared in my story as it was at that moment. Now, there's really power in me disclosing it to people and saying, no, I actually am doing well. My life is good. Part of why it's good is because I took care of myself and did things and reached out and asked for help. It's very humbling to ask. I think our culture and as men in general, I will say, as a person who identifies as male, in this culture, in society, and I'm from rural Ohio. Like, I grew up in farm country and didn't leave that place for the first 18 years of my life. So it was like, you get married, you raise a family, you're the head of household, you run the show. And I, throughout all of this, I didn't feel like I was in charge of much of anything. I mean, I had the sex and got the HIV. I was an active, Michaela, you talked about it like brilliantly. I'm an active participant in the events that took place, whether or not I was mentally functioning well, because, I wasn't. But I take my side of the responsibility and try to leave the rest be, because everybody else has their own stuff. And knowing how to know where I stop and the other part starts sometimes is a gray area for me in my mental health. But sharing my story is what helps my mental health now. Talking my truth helps my mental health. The more I've put it out, other people then come to me and say, help, I'm struggling with this. And so then it's beautiful that you're putting yourself out there so much to help people, because that to me is the cure.
It is
to put yourself out and be a helpful person. It's really where my joy is now.
Dion, how about you?
So I really want to echo everything that Jason said. Like, for me, like, initially having that one person to be that support system was everything. Granted, he wasn't positive, but he helped me, like, kind of mentally just like work through it and process everything. And so then over time, it's just been finding people who are like me, finding people who are positive, just being a bright light in people's lives, being someone who people feel comfortable talking to, helps them disclose to me and helps me disclose to them as well. And so just building that network of people and building that support system over time has really helped me to have to better process, what's going on inside of my body. But also, and I'll admit, this is extremely scary for me, this whole process that we're doing this podcast. So this is also very helpful for me. It's helping me to kind of break through some of my own anxieties about disclosure and, people knowing. And, it's okay. Like, it's a part of me. It doesn't define me. It's not who I am. It's just a little part of me that I take a pill to deal with every day. And I don't really even think about it, honestly. So, I mean, if I can be a beacon of light for someone out there who's struggling with this, that's what I want to do, because you can treat this, you can deal with it, you can overcome it, so to speak. It's not a death sentence like it was back in the 80s. And I don't know, I just want to be someone that everybody can just come to, feel comfortable with, and I want to find people who are like that too. I want to feel comfortable with other people disclosing to them. So that's what I got.
I would say the mental part back then was just about, I disclosed to the person who I contracted with, and the person they contracted with was always still close-knit and they still had a good relationship with them. But when it came to me, they decided to up and move. I stayed with them and their family, but they decided to move up and move on me out of state even after I disclosed. So 2 weeks later, they was gone. So the support I thought I had was gone, even though I was open and always willing to be supportive to you. But they left because they knew I had a very close-knit family, and they knew how my family was, and they just know how we are. And it's like, when you go say something, everybody gonna be ready to pop off on me and this and that and this and that. And I was just like, it was never that, because I know how people always thought, oh, somebody disclosed and they didn't tell you, or you contract, oh, they going to jail and this. And I was like, it was never, I own my part. Mentally, I would say back then what would have been grateful and helpful is if I felt comfortable enough to go into certain spaces and certain circles to be able to have that support, and it be not the mess of, ooh, we got tea, we about to go tell everybody, we about to. And so it was just the discretion and support of just understanding, like, bitch, you in the same boots as me. How you gonna go out here and try to tell my tea? Like, so I didn't go to, that's why I didn't go to support groups and anything like that or whatever. And it was POC support groups and all that. But I was like, I'm not here for the mess, because, baby, I'm not here to try to throw you under the bus. But if you doing what you need to do to take care of your health, I don't understand why you feel like it's so important to go out there and be shady. So it was just like, back then I didn't really feel that it was that. And so, like, I did everything solo dolo on my own. And, like, that's why I say the mental part of it is, like, it can be a lot for somebody. Nowadays, like, I've gone to the different counseling. I've gone to mental health counseling and stuff, but that was my first time ever doing group therapy. And what I will say, group therapy is a benefit. I had a lot of individual therapy growing up and stuff in my diagnosis and stuff, so that was very supportive. But I think, like you said, being able to talk to more people who was in the situation and understood and was already getting care or figuring out care, it probably would have been more beneficial back then to now. So that's why, like, now I just feel like, I don't feel like I'm a free spirit and sharing and telling, but I do, because I was like, it don't affect me, it don't hurt me, it don't make me no none to just share and tell, because I want people to make sure, like, do what you got to do for you and do what you got to do to be supportive and caring to others. It's not about sharing tea, telling tea. Personal health is like a real thing. Like, it affects people, even people with diabetes and things like that. That affects everything. So it's not about going out there sharing somebody's business to, you know, so, like, still keep that discretion and that inclusivity of just being like, if somebody felt the hard enough to feel like they can comfortable enough to say something to you, you got to protect that. I would say now, still to this day, I feel more comfortable disclosing easily and freely in front of, like, heterosexual communities outside of the LGBTQIA, because then, like, they are inquisitive to want to ask the questions and really get the resources and really take home to the resources and figure out what and how. And then because of those people outside of the LGBTQIA, they want to go and talk to their youth and young people or those in their family who are LGBTQIA. Like, when I disclosed and came out to my mom at 21, her biggest thing was like, baby, please be safe, be that. I'm like, but I can't disclose to you and disclose that I've already contracted, even though I thought I was being safe but I wasn't being safe, but I was feeling like I was in love. So, like, it's always a whole bunch of stigma things wrapped around a lot of stuff. So it's like wording, and people don't understand that wording means a lot. Like, I had someone, they was like, we in the mix of, you know, foreplay and all that and stuff or whatever. And it's like, hey, is you sick? What? I'm not about to disclose to you saying nothing like that, because your wording and your tone is very disrespectful, and you're not going to receive it if I tell you anything or not. Like, we finished, we done. Cause,
we're
like,
dirty.
Yeah.
That's
like,
the other one people like to do. I'm like, yeah, I took a shower.
Yeah. So it's just like the mental, like, it is very, it can be effective, but, like, getting that mental help and that mental support, but also yourself mentally wrapping your mind around building the strength for you. You got to be your own strength, because at the end of the day, sometimes everybody not going to be there for you. So I can see why in 2022 people are like, you're very, it's just hard to, because you're so independent, you're so secure, you're just so, people say, I can't, what is the word? Like, they say it's just hard. I'm like, I'm not a hard person to get to know. I'm not a hard person to get to love, but I do have layers. And if you don't want to respect the first layer before you get to this superstar layer that you're attracted to, then, baby, you're not going to understand, because, baby, this person helped this person get to where we are today. Like, we are a sync. We are together. Like, Michaela Denise ain't her own entity as the world give her her own social security number. Like, I would like my residuals off of her. But, I mean, I'm the voice and the person behind it, and I'm the strength that came behind it. But, like, I will say Michaela was a saving light to allow me to see myself and, you know, put myself out there in different things. That was my mental healing. The stage was my mental healing, because I was able to go share my emotions and feelings via songs that I was doing via drag, or through expressions of the outfits and the makeups and the looks. So, like, that was like my mental saving grace. That still to this day, the stage is like the safest place for me. Like, But like you say, in like the things, like even when it came to work and all that and stuff, like I feel so much better doing this type of work. Like, and then when I'm in other avenues of trying to do something, I feel like it's regular, but like I feel more of a vessel to do what I am, to try to help the community, to help educate, be better, and try to make sure the resources to get into the proper areas and things like that. But always take heed to like support your friends, support your family. And if you know somebody who is positive or somebody battling, somebody scared of testing, figure out how to be that support system. Like the person who took me to go get tested was the person I lost my virginity to, but he was also somebody who had been with somebody who was positive. So his support was something long-lived and just so amazing. And then like when I think about my partner who I contracted from, like 3 years into me doing what I was doing, they was like, thank you. Thank you for taking it the important route. Thank you for showing us. Thank you for pushing me to figure out how to make me do better in my health, make me do better in my care. And so I was able to, I think, open the doors of opportunity for people to realize it's okay to accept. And that's the biggest thing. You got to have the first acceptance of yourself and your diagnosis first before anybody else is going to understand it. And so I think that's why I did take the first 6 years for me, because I still was kind of, I accepted it the day of, but I still was like, you a good person, you a church boy, you a mama's boy, you do good, this can't be real, like it's gonna go away, it's going. And I also thought, well, you're going to transition. It's going to go away. But I was like, bitch, it's in the bloodstream. You don't transition your bloodstream. Like,
yes.
Yes. So
you never
that's
know.
why
We might
exactly.
get there.
So it was like, that's one reason why I am in that non-binary spectrum, because I'm like, I didn't have to transition, or I don't feel like I have to. But at a point in time, I thought that was going to be my saving grace. Like, ooh, I'm going to be a whole new person, about to have a whole new body. But it's like, the diagnosis is already there. And so like, you know how some people say I'm living with HIV, that I don't like that term. HIV is living within me because I've already outlived HIV.
Nice. What would you, there's two questions I have. So it's a two-parter. What would you like to say to long-term survivors? And what would you say to folks in our community who, what I call HIV neutral? I don't even like to use HIV negative because I'm like,
right,
you HIV isn't your thing yet, so you're just HIV neutral. So what would you like to say to those folks, those two groups of folks? And you can sit on it and think about it for a second. But
I would say for the longtime survivors, thank you all for being steadfast. Thank you all for the education. Thank you all for forcing the medical field to take our voices and realize that we are the important voices of when it comes to our care. If it wasn't for you all doing that, then we probably would still be in a fight where we wouldn't have all the medications that we have, all the resources that we have, or just globally being able to, stand in what we're doing. Even like when it comes to U equals U, like I didn't understand when I first heard that I was undetectable. But then in 2017, when I was around U equals U stuff, I was like, oh, wow, like, oh my gosh. So to be able to have the world transcend, to be able to have that growth, to be able to see that there is a HIV negative medicine or a medicine to help keep you HIV negative, another contraceptive, like it's just a growth and the expansion of the longtime survivors fighting and pushing and pushing and pushing. They got tired of seeing their friends and family die. But like you said, there's always sometimes that guilt because I've survived. Don't feel guilty for the fact that you was able to be a part of a wave that allowed you the resources to manage and withstand on being able to have some longevity in your voice and in your story, because your voice and your story is why we're able to build upon the quilt, why we're able to build upon what we're going to have in remembrance. And for those who are HIV neutral, it's a Russian roulette game. It's not a safety net for anybody to say that, oh, it's untouchable. Married people, you still make sure that you're getting your testing. And what I've realized being in conferences and a lot of times in married relationships, especially heterosexual, the husband may go in, they may offer testing, but with the wife, they may not. So always challenge your health providers to give you every testing under the sun to make sure that you're being protected. And when it comes to PrEP and being able to be young person trying to get it, parents, don't hold your children back from being able to have the access because you're in fear. Condoms is not the only thing that people are using these days, and sometimes in our youth and young people, especially the ages of 17 or 24, they don't even believe in condoms. So if they want to take a contraceptive that's going to allow them, just like people who take birth control. Do everything that you can under the sun to protect yourself, but also make sure that you're having honest communication. That is the biggest thing first. And make sure that honest communication, if you don't feel like that person is being honest, keep trust and faith in your own word and figure out what it is that you got to do to protect yourself. Women who are HIV neutral, there is condoms and protections for yourself as well. If a man or someone else say they don't want to use it, use your own. For those who are very savvy, even when you go down and you give fellatio head or however you want to call it, you can hide the condom in your mouth and put it on so you can make sure that you still have your protection. So in all, thank you to everyone who's a longtime survivor and doing the work. Thank you for those who are a part of the field that's trying to make sure that they're negative is staying in that field and realm. Always understand, like, it's not the easiest feat to be HIV positive because, like I say, the mental is the biggest challenge. But if you do become positive, you can be 100% healthy, live a long life, and still be able to have love and experience greatness in this world.
Wow. Okay, I love you.
Right. When Michaela agreed, I was like, superstar, and I'm a fanboy. So anyway, I don't expect that from you two because Michaela, this is their work. They're so you feel free to make it personal.
No, I would say for long-term survivors, for the people that and many of whom I was close friends with prior to my own diagnosis. Obviously, for those of you that might feel guilty, it was really important for me to see your presence. So bridging, I'm emotional right now. So, I'm just going to let that be out in the air because, so thank you for being there. Thank you for persevering. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for putting a face on something that people did not want to look at or see. I didn't want to be seen amongst you when I got my diagnosis, and now I'm glad to count myself amongst you. For those of you who are maybe in that HIV neutral place, prep. Just prep. Like, the one thing I will say as somebody who's been on meds a long time, it's a hassle. It's difficult. I mean, I get it. But I'd rather have the hassle of taking a regular medicine that prevents me from having other more difficult physical health challenges than and you have that option. I didn't have that option. And Michaela said it. If I had that option and had known that that was an option, hell yes, I would have done that. And so don't be scared of that. I talked about being scared of medication and all of that. So I won't minimize that for you who are listening. Talk to people, find safe people, just find people who want to lift you up, because people who don't want to hear it are not caring for you. Because if you're curious or feel like this is something that you should be doing, you need to stick with people that want to support that with you. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say.
How do you follow all of that?
Because you're gonna speak from your heart, because your experience is different from the
truth. It's your own.
So to the long-term survivors, you are, as the other two people have said, you are the reason we're here. I mean, you gave a face to the movement. You started the ball rolling in the right direction. You gave me hope that I'm going to live a great life. And there are no words I can use to say how much I appreciate you, but I just want you to know that you are appreciated, you are loved, you're worthy. And there's no need to be afraid. There's no need to have any guilt. We support you. We love you. And we're going to be here for you. To people who are HIV neutral, as Jason said, prep. You've got to use PrEP. I know you think you're invincible. I know you think, oh, that's not going to happen to me. But you need to protect yourself in any way that you possibly can. Your body is your temple. You need to treat it right. You need to love it. You need to love yourself. And I think part of protecting yourself is loving yourself, or part of loving yourself is protecting yourself. Everyone say that either way, both ways. Love yourself. Have enough respect for yourself to make good decisions for yourself. Because, we only live one life, and we've got to do what we can to make it the best that we can. So get information, protect yourself, love yourself, and, talk to people, find out what people's experiences are, learn as much as you can, because I think the more you learn, the more you're going to make good decisions for yourself.
Oh, yes. Run and get prepped like you're running for vaccinations.
Yes.
That's right.
And I would like to add, allegedly, we only live one life. Shirley MacLaine would argue otherwise.
Sweet.
Just I didn't want to exclude anyone out there.
Hey, no one should feel excluded from this conversation.
You live your one life here on earth, and you live your one in your afterlife in the spirit. So
there's that. Yeah, that too. So we went totally off script, which is perfect because we get to talk about the stuff that's important as we head towards closure. And I never plan for something to say at the end. Rizzo's learning that I'm super unprepared. But I dragged you out here to the suburbs, and I just want to make sure that you didn't have something else that you wanted to make sure got out there in the podcast world. That you got to say that I didn't ask, or you just didn't have the opportunity to say. You got up early this morning, you came out here. So I just want to give you, and maybe you've said it, but if not, I just want to give you one more moment to say the thing, if you wanted to say it.
Don't be afraid to share your truth with established, trusted people in your life. My success is because of that. And regardless of whether it had to do with the doctor or a therapist or my mother, my lover, speak all of your truth. Don't hide parts of you away. I don't do compartmentalization. There you go. That's I want to say that.
Dion? And you don't have to. I just want to make sure that there was I wish I would have said that one thing.
Love you. Done.
There you go.
I would like to leave everybody with this. Everyone was created with purpose. Everyone is destined for greatness. And each individual adds something to this world. It don't matter if you're heterosexual, LGBTQIA, or anything in between. You are a part and a vessel to bring something to this life. For so long, I fought my calling. But I know what my calling in is. It is to be transparent. It is to be a healer. It is to be, God's seed, to, be a steward in this world. So for so long, for the past 5 years, I've kept praying like, God, everybody know I want to be famous. But it's not really about being famous for the fame. It's about being famous to be able to do what it is that I do daily, and that's to just project the resources and the opportunities for people to understand how, as an individual, you can be great and do what it is that you need to do to live out your truth. So don't fight that calling. And a lot of people sometimes in this realm, in this world of doing this type of work, they fight it because they're scared of the stigmas of the public views and things like that. I have a I don't give a fuck attitude, and I'm going to always have that attitude, because what I say and what I do, I don't know what life it can touch, who it could provide healing to, who it could provide support to, and who could be a resource of it. So every time I get out and speak, I just ask the Lord, allow my tongues to do what it is to do and what it need to do. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what's going to come out. So in everything that's been said today, it was all for a purpose and a reason. And so I'm very grateful and thankful for this opportunity, because these are things that I love to do. I'm not going to say I'm a superstar and why it comes so freely, but that's just the way of the world for me, to where this is my calling and this is my service, to help other people and just being transparent and honest.
Thank you. I couldn't have said it better, so I'm glad you said it for me. So in closing, I would just like to say, our healthcare is important and it matters, and we deserve access to healthcare. So, lots of really great stuff here. Join us for our next podcast, and stay tuned.
Request me as Myles co-host.